Hello friends! Welcome back to another episode of Reddit ProRevenge. I've got 4 stories for you in this one. The first story is how a husband got back at a coworker for stealing his wife's phone. The second story is why you shouldn't pick on strangers. The third is why you should always be nice when speaking to customer service, especially at 3 a.m. And the last one, how an employer was forced to pay a hefty fine for keeping an important door locked. I hope you stay for all the stories today, and subscribe for future videos. This one's titled, Coworker Stole My Wife's Phone. For a bit of background, this happened a few years back. Smartphones were just starting to get cool, and HTC released the first Android phone, the G1. I got one for myself and one for my wife. It was her first non-flip phone and she loved the keyboard. We worked together at a clinical lab, running people's blood work and such. This is actually how we came to know each other. I called in sick one day, and my wife went to work without me. While I was crashed on the couch feeling miserable, I get an email from her phone. I had installed an app that reports home with all kinds of useful information when the SIM card gets switched out. Later, when my wife got home, she asked me if I had seen her phone, thinking that she'd forgotten it at home when it was actually stolen from her purse at work. A few days later, I'm over my illness and back at work. Knowing the phone was stolen, most likely by a coworker, I decided to play dumb and talk very openly about how forgetful my wife is, saying things like, "This is the 3rd phone she's lost." I struck up a conversation with a girl that had been rumored to have sticky fingers. Other ladies at the lab suspected her of taking money from their purses, but nothing could be proven. So after a friendly conversation with her, she offered to lend me and my wife her old sidekick, as she'd recently gotten a new phone and wasn't using it. I thanked her for her kindness and asked if we could talk more over text. She gave me her number, and I checked the email the lost phone had sent the days previous. Of course, the number associated with the SIM card that was put into my wife's phone matched the suspected coworkers. I continued to play dumb and let her kindly loan me the sidekick to replace my wife's lost phone. She even offered to sell it to me for cheap because we're friends. I let it sit for a few days, and when she began asking for money for the phone she'd given me, I laid it out over text message. I informed her that I had proof of her taking the phone, and I would go to HR if she didn't return it. Of course, she denied the theft at first, but agreed to all my demands, and eventually admitted to having the phone, which she would return on condition of my silence. Once my wife's phone was back in my possession, I presented all the transcripts and relevant emails to the HR lady. After getting my email summing up the events, she asked me out to lunch so I could give her the whole story. She was very excited to be a part of it. Well, a few weeks went by and nothing. Then one morning, I wake up to an interesting text saying, "How could you do this to me? I got fired because of you. I thought we had a deal." I smiled to myself, got up, and poured a cup of coffee. Then I replied. I said, "Don't dance with the devil," and blocked her number. This one's titled, Bully a Poor Stranger? Never Get Your Car Part. This revenge was not mine, but I was lucky enough to see it happen. I headed to a local chain auto parts store last night, looking for a particular component of my wife's temperamental car. As my young daughter and I headed inside, there was some douchebag guy, henceforth DBG, hanging out in front of the shop, standing next to a heavily modified car. Obnoxiously large spoiler, tons of stickers, and enough bass pouring from it to damage the nearby concrete. He was yelling something over the music, lecturing some poor employee about the magic under his open hood. The employee looked pretty desperate to get away. I went inside and browsed for a few minutes. Okay, honestly, I stared blankly at the components and tried to comprehend what I needed. Then, DBG entered. I could tell the exact moment he came in, as there was a flood of bass, and his loud voice, which didn't lower in volume as the door closed behind him. His speech was eloquent, with "fuck" being probably every second or third word. A real peach. The unfortunate employee had followed DBG inside, and now DBG was making demands about his car needs, and bro, I need that fucking dinglehopper like fucking yesterday, you know what I mean? I rolled my eyes and hoped that my daughter was learning a life lesson here. Abruptly, there came a shout from DBG, even louder than he'd been. He said, "Dude, what the fuck, bro?" I reflexively poked my head out of the aisle, trying to see what was up. Another customer, some poor bastard, henceforth PB, apparently had the audacity to be up at the counter at the same time as DBG. And now, DBG was squaring off with him. All I heard was, "What the fuck's your problem, bro?" Sorry, I was just trying to... Do you want to fucking go? At this point, I have to note that I'm uncertain what PB did to spark that reaction. There was some little product on the floor between the two men, so I think that PB may have accidentally dropped it or knocked it off a rack. Whatever happened, DBG was completely in PB's face. Arms extended and chest puffed out. PB was shrinking away and trying to avoid being beaten to a pulp. As he tried to apologize, he began to stutter. This just fueled the douchebag. He said, "Ha, you fucking little twerp, look at you. You gonna cry, bro?" PB backed off, hands up to ward off a potential attack. As soon as he was clear, he booked his ass out of the store. DBG turned back to the employee, who was standing behind the counter looking shell-shocked. DBG said, "You believe that shit, bro? Fucking guy thinks he can step up to me." At this point, I'm contemplating my options. I'm the kind of guy that just can't keep my mouth shut. Maybe I should have something in reach, in case he threatens me. But, crap. I can't endanger my daughter. Maybe I should demand he be thrown out, or I take my business elsewhere. A millisecond later, a manager appeared next to the employee on the other side of the counter, keeping me from doing something stupid. I shall call him Manager with 20-pound brass balls. He says, "Hey, so, that was a 95, right?" "Fucking A, bro. You got it?" "We don't, but a warehouse in the next town over does. I already went ahead and ordered it." "Bro, sweet. When can I pick it up?" "Not so fast. I didn't order it for you. I went ahead and ordered it for the store. And after that uncalled for behavior, you're not allowed to shop here anymore. By the way, while I was on the computer, I saw that there were 3 more dinglehoppers within a 6-hour radius. I bought them all. Looks like you're out of luck." The manager then told him to get out and never come back. DBG stared for a long moment and then stomped out the door. He peeled out of the parking lot with a screech. The manager was still at the register when I went to check out. I said, "Wow, some people, right?" He replies with, "Story of my life, unfortunately." "So, I have to ask, did you really buy all the parts he needs?" "Nah, I did a search and there are none available. Odd part, not many made, just can't get them. But now he thinks he screwed himself out of them, and I get to feel like I stuck up for that poor guy." This story's titled, "Drunken Woman Berates Me While I'm Trying to Help." A few years ago, I used to work overnight from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. for an insurance company. I did roadside assistance, which consisted of people calling in about a flat tire, dead battery, or, in this case, keys locked in the car. I'd then call and pay a contracted company to go out and help. So around 3 a.m. my time, a woman calls in from Phoenix for help. She's locked out of her car. She starts the call off very impatient and belligerent. First off, she was slurring heavily, so I was having a hard time getting her address, which I guess was my fault. I had to have her repeat the city a few times since I genuinely could not understand her. She hated this and began mocking me and implying that I wasn't from the country, which in fact I was. Apparently my southern accent didn't allude to that. Anyway, once I get the address, I asked what the address was for a reference for the locksmith, house, gas station, etc. She said it was a house. I looked it up in Google Maps and it was in fact a dive bar. Put her on hold to call the locksmith. Once I got back over, she continued to be generally displeased and angry at me personally because it would take 45 minutes for the locksmith to get there, which is actually a decent time, especially past midnight. I hung up and Googled the local police. I called them and reported her for a potential DUI, mostly because she pissed me off. Sure enough, about 45 minutes, the locksmith called back saying that he couldn't perform the service. I could hear yelling in the background. Apparently, the woman began fighting with a police officer when he arrived, and was being arrested by the time the driver showed up. Her boyfriend or husband was trying to talk them out of it. So it turns out she did have a DD, but her drunken anger made her start fighting the police that showed up. Be nice to call center employees. This story's titled, "Don't Fire People for Being Injured at Work." A friend of mine was electrocuted at work. It was pretty bad. Later on, he was fired because he was electrocuted. Fortunately, he turned that around when he learned he could get disability for the electrocution, but it knocked out several teeth that aren't coming back. Anyway, I called OSHA and told them about the electrocution. They weren't so interested in that, but perked right up when I told them that the place routinely locked the emergency fire exit doors to prevent employees from stepping outside to sneak a smoke. Well, they inspected, found the locked emergency exit doors, and went to town on them. Turns out a long time ago, a business on the East Coast locked the security doors and there was a fire, killing several dozen people. OSHA gets very sensitive about stuff like that. The owner was fined $40,000 for the security doors. He also spent quite a bit of money fighting for 10 years, but eventually had to pay anyway. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed these stories today. If you want to submit your own stories, my Discord server is in the link below. Also, if you aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss future stories. See you guys in the next one.